Yo guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode. GMAK, the Boiler Man, coming at you live. Well, I was live when I did the video. You're not live, but that's okay. Today I wanted to continue the conversation about systems. I talked a little bit about the differences between hydronic and steam. I've talked about a specific issue at specific radiators in a steam system. Today I wanted to talk about the system as a whole and dealing with kind of banging issues and some other things we find in a single pipe system. A lot of what we deal with is single pipe. I do have two pipe systems, but predominantly when I come on here, I'm going to discuss single pipe systems because that's mostly what we come across and mostly what I think, at least in the New York City area, is what we deal with. Maybe some of you guys in other areas deal with more two pipe systems, and that's fine. But I'm going to discuss always the things that I know well. I don't want to discuss things I don't know very well because I'd be coming on here looking like a jackass, and I don't want to do that. So if you're new to the channel, though, we appreciate you guys being here. If you haven't already, subscribe, man. Please give us some love. And if you also haven't, smash the like button. Also give us some love. Push that algorithm up. Helps get our videos out there. We're trying to get some views on these things. We think we're doing a good job, and that's what's most important, you know. But it is most important if you think we're doing a good job, and you let us know that by liking and subscribing to the channel and dropping comments below. Because, listen, who doesn't want to have a conversation? That's why you're here. You're here to listen, but you also may have some things you want to interject, so please drop them below. So on this episode, one of the things we deal with a lot of the time in the wintertime is banging issues in a building. Again, I always come at you from the perspective of multifamily properties because that's what we deal with. But a lot of the same concepts of things I discuss can be transferred over to like a residential, right? That's the one thing I can say to you guys about systems, which is why I always tell people that if you're coming into the business, I learned commercial, industrial first. So my transition into helping out, like when I was working for a company doing residential, it was an easier transition. It's a little bit more difficult to transition from residential to industrial because there's a lot more safeties, there's a lot more wiring, there's a lot more things going on. And listen, let's be honest, it's scaled up so many times. I mean, a residential house, to figure out, you have access to all rooms, you have access to the mains, you have access to the boiler. All these things are fairly easy to access, where in a building, everything becomes, that much harder and a little bit more convoluted. So, but again, I talk about mostly major dwellings, but again, anything you hear me talk about mostly can correlate to a smaller house. So don't be scared off of not watching the video because you think this is based on residential. What I'm talking about and these concepts that I'm discussing can be for residential or industrial. I didn't mean to hammer that home so hard and spend a minute talking about it, but it's so important because I know how YouTube is, and you come on, you watch a video and you're like, this guy's talking about big buildings, I don't need to watch this, but that's not true. So watch anyway. With that being said, if I get a call that there's a lot of banging in the buildings, there's a lot of factors to these things. You see, like anything else, and I've talked about this in other videos, it's really important as a technician, especially somebody that's trying to diagnose problems with systems, to be kind of an investigator. I have to take notes. I have to ask a lot of poignant questions. It's really the only way to get to the answers that I need. So when I get banging problem questions or complaints, one of the first questions I ask is it only in the morning? Is it in the evening? Is it throughout the day? Well, why do I ask that? Because sometimes in these buildings, and again, this can be for your house too, if the system's been off for a period of time, let's say in the evening, now all the pipes are cold. When you first turn that system on, and this is almost more towards the buildings or houses that are not well insulated if the pipes are running through a cold area. So like in our buildings, we have a lot of basements. Those basements don't have heat, so they get really cold in the middle of the night. And then when you turn the system on for the first time, that transfer of heat, and without the insulation, what's the insulation do on the piping? Well, the insulating of the mains, really what it does is not only does it hold the heat in, it doesn't allow that outside temperature to eat the steam away or create that condensation so fast, because a lot of times as that steam is heading out into the mains, it can condense really quick because the piping is so cold that temperature differential creates a lot of condensation, and then you get a lot of water hammer, but that could be first thing in the morning. So if I get the answer of, well, it's only first thing in the morning, then one of the things I have to look at is how the boiler's performing, making sure that my input is good, but also walk in the building a little bit and seeing where there is or isn't insulation, because that could be the next step for the landlord, manager, whatever the case may be. Now, if I get the call that it's happening all day long, so now I'm into, okay, is my water level good in the boiler? If you understand steam boilers, there's a pocket above the water line that creates my clean steam, my good steam, or dry steam, or however you want to call it. They call it dry steam. I just call it good steam. And in our boilers, especially when you have a round steel boiler, the crown of the boiler, where the water level stops and the top of the boiler ends, is that area where I'm producing the steam that I need to give good clean steam to the building. If my water level is too high and the crown of the boiler is here and my water level is somewhere up here, well, I don't really leave myself a lot of room to create good clean steam. And what's going to happen is, as the steam takes off out of the boiler, which can happen, at a fairly high velocity for the eye to see, it's going to suck water up with it. And then as the water sucks up with it into the steam headers, you get a collision and you get banging. So the first thing I'm looking at when I walk in the boiler room is, what's my water level at, right? I got to make sure that, A, my automatic water feeder is piped at the right level, because a lot of times I've gone to jobs that weren't ours, and I'm like, well, first, before I do anything, case in point, there's a job we just went to that was set up this way, that he was telling me they were getting banging for years, but the water feeder is already piped too high, so it's already way covered over the coil and only leaving me a little bit of room to create steam. So I already told him, amongst other things, we got to lower that, right? So I'm checking, what's my height of my feeder? Is my water level good? Sometimes the supers do go in the summertime. You want to make sure you're producing more than enough hot water for the building. So if my normal water level is here, the guys might raise it up manually just to make sure the coil is 100% covered. You got to remember, in our jobs, a lot of them have a domestic water coil inside. So I have to make sure that my coil's covered enough, which sits in that pocket that I'm talking about, but it's not covered too much that the water level's too high. But in the summertime, I don't worry about steam. We're only worried about domestic hot water. So I can raise the water level a little bit manually to get through the summer without any complaints. So now I check the water level. Okay, let's say my water level is good. I'm like, all right, so what's my next thing? Well, the other thing that can happen inside a boiler is what? If you're a boiler guy or you're not, what happens inside the boiler, depending on a lot of factors, is you can get surging inside the boiler. Now, what does the surging do, and why is the surging happening? Well, surging can be caused by overfiring of the boiler. So if I am calling, and again, I'm using round numbers, if I'm calling for like 2 million BTUs, and that's the max that the boiler can handle, but I'm fired at 2.5 million, let's just say, I'm 500,000 BTUs over what the boiler can handle, it can create surging. Another thing that creates surging is a lot of these boiler rooms in my business have chemical companies that come and they put chemicals in the boiler to keep the boilers clean and protect the steel inside the boiler. And sometimes guys come and they put too much chemical in. So what is the result of too much chemical is the reaction between the chemical and the water as I'm producing steam creates a lot of fluctuations inside the boiler, creating a surge. And that surge, just to go back to this, as it correlates to both of those things, can trigger the feeder, right? So like, let's say my feeder's here, but I'm getting a surge that's like this. A normal surge is probably between a half, like if you were looking at the water gauge glass, is about a 1/2 inch to 3/4. If I'm in the 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, or you're seeing water sucking out of the tube, there's other problems going on. But as far as the surge is concerned, if my water level's here and I keep surging below that water feeder, it triggers the feeder every time. So every time the water goes low, it puts water, puts water, puts water. What's going to happen? Eventually, as it's doing that, as it's surging, because I've walked into jobs where the water level is high now, and I'm saying why, that surging is going to create a higher water level essentially over time, and then you'll also get water hammer throughout the building, because now, going back to what I said earlier, your water level is super high, and that steam is pulling the water up with it, and then we get water hammer. These are such key things to understand. When I talk about it, it seems so elementary, but I've been doing this a long time. I have to remind myself when I'm speaking to people that there's a whole thought process in place, even as it pertains to pressures in the system. I remember when I first started in the business. I remember seeing every boiler operating at 5-6 pounds of pressure. Until I started reading, until I started educating myself and realizing that that's a bunch of shit. This is going to be another topic that I discuss in a different video, talking about pressures and things like that. But as you start to learn things, everything becomes easy, right? So I have to remember to speak in terms of that people can understand. I mean, if you're watching these, you're probably fairly blue collar, or you really just love looking at my mug, which is, you know, fantastic. Thank you. But it's really a topic that I'm passionate about. I love the business. But these are things you really want to be looking into. I want to know water level. I want to know my gas input or oil. What am I fired at? If I need 20 gallons of oil, am I firing over 20 gallons of oil? Am I right at the 20 gallon mark? Maybe it's slightly overfired for that boiler. Or what's the pressures? You know, there's so many things. I can't get into all of them on one YouTube video, but I want to always give you guys a little bit of insight on things you can look for. And I'm also open for comments or questions. And again, I always answer at the best of my ability. I just try to give you my own experiences from the field and try to help you guys in any way that I can. I would say I'm an expert, but there's a lot of stuff I still don't know. But I'm always going to come on here, speak to you from my heart, tell you guys what I feel and what I've seen and what works for me. And I've been pretty good at it for a bunch of years now. So had I at it, I may not make these videos. But being that I've been pretty accurate and have solved a lot of problems, I think I'm a decent person to listen to when it comes to this topic. You know what I mean? But you could be the judge of that. But again, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I hope you got something from this. Again, I just to reiterate, this is a video on banging issues and some things to look for. Again, I don't get all the way in the weeds in these videos because they can go on and on and on, but these are very surface level things that you can look for. You want to know if there's surge. You want to know what your gas input is. You want to know how much water is in the boiler, how that water get in the boiler, right? So all these things are going to help keep nice, clean steam and make sure that your system is working the way you anticipated or the way it's supposed to. So I hope you got something from this. Subscribe to the channel. Like it if you don't mind. Help it grow. I'm trying to put a lot of effort into growing this thing. Leave a comment below like you've heard me say many times. Any questions, concerns, thoughts, please share them. Nobody's questions are too stupid. You know what I mean? Like they always tell you, that's and anything you have to say to add to this, by all means, please. I'm always open for open forum. I think it's very important. That's the only way all of us grow, myself included. I have zero ego about me, and I'm always just looking to grow and help you guys as well. So I hope you have an amazing day. I appreciate you guys being here once again. Keep crushing your business. Peace.